Now joining us to speak much more about the anticipated Soweto Derby is Delmain Faver of Soccer Laduma. Delmain, appreciate your time this evening. Now both teams have struggled in the league this season. What do you think has been the problem?
Hugo, good evening to you and good evening also to your Newzroom Afrika viewers. I think the problem with both of the teams is that they are in a period of self-discovery. I speak for both Chiefs and Orlando Pirates. Pirates have done the self-discovery while winning trophies, and the same can be said for Chiefs. I think what both clubs need to do is they need to bring the football, because in terms of marketing, that has been taken care of. In terms of the fans, that has been taken care of, because over 80,000 tickets sold. That was yesterday already. It's expected to be a sold-out FNB. So everyone around the game, Hugo, has brought their part. The only thing that is needed now is that the clubs bring their part as well on the field. We know that there was a lot of nicknames given to this fixture. It was called a Drawby, it was called a Dalby, because of the lack of goals and also because largely this game over the last 10 years or so has lost its heaviness in terms of consequence. It's not a top of the table clash. The last time it was in 2013. So obviously, Mamelodi Sundowns' dominance has put a bit of a damper, but it remains one of the biggest games on the African continent.
Now, you talked about a Dalby and a Drawby and many other things that has been called. It almost suggests that the fans themselves are more enthusiastic than either side to win this game.
Yeah, absolutely. The fans speak about it weeks in advance. Even after the game has happened, the fans continue to speak about it. That's why it's more about bragging rights than anything else. For the players, perhaps the pride of beating your arch rivals doesn't appeal to them as much. We don't see that passion. We don't see that they're willing to die on the field with their boots on. And also, what has happened is that there's no rivalry per se. If you go to Italy between Inter and AC Milan, those are rivalries, because the fans literally, long before the game even starts, they can't sit on the same sides. The battle lines are drawn quite literally. With us, we see our fans sitting together. It doesn't have that. Even before the game, there's a lot of niceties. So it doesn't have that derby feel. Yes, it's two teams from Soweto. They're from the same region, so that makes it a derby. However, the rivalry in the derby seems to have been lost in us trying to be friendly, and perhaps that has diluted it a bit.
So let's talk about Chiefs, and they've had to make a coaching change with Kevin Johnson replacing Nteki. What does this add to the Chiefs side ahead of the derby? I suppose would be the first part of the question. And the second part speaks to the two coaches. Are we reliant on the coaches to inspire the players themselves to desire these victories that seem to be lacking?
Yeah, so in answering your second question first, I think when you play a game of this magnitude in front of such a huge crowd, there's very little motivation that you can even get from the coach. Perhaps the onus is on him to get his selection right, to ensure that he's selecting the best players on the day. But in terms of motivation, that needs to come intrinsically from the players. That is something that has to come from themselves. And I mean, you grow up watching this derby. So if you get the opportunity to play in it, then I'm sure you have to make the most of it. The exciting thing is that we could have two teenagers, Mofokeng and Abalala, feature tomorrow, which is quite exciting. I mean, for them to be playing games of this magnitude. And coming back to your first question with regards to the coaches, it's never a good thing. I'd ask the players, because if you think about it, in a matter of months, this is Chiefs' third coaching change. They had demoted Atazwane to assistant, and then 4 months after he was appointed, Nteki was then fired. So Kevin Johnson brought in on an interim basis. What it does is it almost creates an instability of some sort, Hugo. Why I say that is because you start the season playing off with certain, I know they speak about the Chiefs way, but each coach has his own identity. So now you play according to how Atazwane wants to play. Then a few months later, you have to change all of that. All the players that were playing under Zwane is now not playing under Nteki. And now all those players might not feature under Johnson, who might have his own ideas. So creates a lot of instability, and you can understand the frustration from the fans. Unfortunately, we've seen some ugly scenes from them. where they've aired their displeasure with the performances. And while I don't condone it, I understand where their frustration stems from.
Delmain, very quickly, my final question, because we're out of time. If you were to call this derby, what would that score be?
I would go for a 1-1 draw. Both teams are struggling at the bit.
Another drawby, as you called it, Delmain Faver from Soccer Laduma. Appreciate your time this evening.